the pod bay doors.
Greetings and welcome to another exciting episode of The Cinematic Travelers. I am your intrepid movie exploring host, Chris, and on this episode I am flying solo as I've got a little special episode, a little bonus episode for you, if you will, as I am going to review a new film. Take a break from our classic selection that we like to do every week. So I thought I would review a movie I saw today entitled Primate. Directed by Jonas Roberts, I think that's how you say his name, the director of 47 Meters Down and The Strangers Prey at Night. Yes, classic horror films. Let's see if Primate lives up to his high standard. Now, before I get to the review, very quickly, let me go ahead and get the podcaster mumbo jumbo out of the way. Whatever you're listening or watching the show on, please follow, subscribe, like, comment. We'd appreciate any feedback. You can also follow us on our Instagram at Cinematic Travelers Pod. And you can get in touch with us on our email address, thecinematictravelers@gmail.com. So you have plenty of ways to participate with the show. I hope you're doing well out there, my beloved listeners. And this probably will be the longest of this type of episode because you know, if you're a longtime listener, you know I love to over-explain things. But yes, usually I do have two co-hosts, my millennial co-host, and we watch classic films that they haven't seen to see if they still live up to the high praise that us older people have heaped upon them. But I don't have much of a life. They're still young. They go out and have fun. I just go to the movies. So I thought it would be kind of fun to have a little extra bonus episode here and there when I go see a new movie. And this one did kind of jump out to me for reasons that I will get to shortly. So, let's go ahead and talk about Primate.
Yeah, it's going to be fun on the bun.
As I mentioned, this is directed by Jonas Roberts, who I did see, I think, a couple of his movies. Like I said, 47 Meters Down. I watched that. I'm a sucker for a shark movie. And The Strangers Prey at Night. Not a great big fan of either one of those. So, I wasn't going into this movie with high expectations. Plus, it's January, and we know that Hollywood loves to just dump crappy horror movies out in January for some reason. I don't know why they don't put out a quality movie. Even if you put up a above average movie in January, you would think it would do well. I will say, I think last January had like 3 or 4 pretty good movies in it. So, we'll see if Primate starts us off in the right direction. I will give you a spoiler-free plot synopsis as well as a spoiler-free review. And again, I'll try to be as quick as possible. Okay, so with Primate, we start the movie with Lucy and her friend Kate. They're heading back to Lucy's home in Hawaii to visit Lucy's dad and sister. And they are joined by another friend, Hannah. And when they are on the plane, they meet a couple of horny dudes. And they kind of hit it off and get each other's phone numbers. And that is important for the carnage later in the movie. Now, upon arriving to her home, Lucy's dad, Adam, played by Academy Award winner Troy Kotsur. I think that's how you say his last name, but hey man, collect that paycheck, brother. I'm with you. Well, he is a famous author and he has some business meetings to attend to, so he heads off for a few days, leaving these young people home alone in this beautiful house right on the hillside of Hawaii. What could possibly go wrong? Well, what could go wrong? It could be possibly the other housemate that they have. And that would be Ben, a chimpanzee that Lucy's mother, her deceased mother, used to do research with communications and all, sign language, all that fun stuff they did with chimps and apes and all that fun stuff. So Ben is there, but unbeknownst to our heroes, Ben has been bitten by a rabid mongoose. And eventually, the disease overtakes him. He becomes crazed and gives us what we want when we showed up to this movie. And that is some chimpanzee going crazy on some motherfuckers. And boy, he does go crazy. It does not pay to be a horny dude in this movie because you are going to pay for your sins, much like, I guess, a Jason movie. Now, I know what you're asking. Will Lucy and the gang be able to keep this damn dirty ape's paws off of them? Or will Ben teach them It's not a good idea to monkey with the monkey. Well, I won't answer those questions, but I will give you the best review for Primate in all the podcast YouTuber universe. Now, before we get into the review, I do have to be open with you about something and what basically attracted me to watching this movie, because I do know in January there are a lot of bad horror movies that get released. Even though, really, to be honest, as a podcaster that does movie reviews, we love bad horror movies. Those are the best ones to do. But I don't want to say I have a fear of chimpanzees and apes and all that, because unless they go Planet of the Apes and learn how to drive and shoot guns, I'm pretty safe where I'm at from any chimpanzee mayhem. But I do have a healthy respect for them. They could stay in their part of the world, and I will stay in my part of the world. These are creatures that, while seem cute and cuddly, can grow up to be very dangerous creatures. I remember a few years back, HBO had I guess it was like a little series, a documentary series entitled Chimp Crazy. And it was about people who, I guess, illegally buy little baby chimpanzees and raise them as children. Only it has horrible, horrible outcomes. Oh my God. There was one where I can't remember if it was a father and a daughter, or it was two people that get trapped in the house, and they call the police, and the officer shows up and he's got his handgun out, and the chimp's just gone crazy. And I just remember he said he shot the chimp a couple of times with the handgun and it did nothing. So he went back to his police car to get a shotgun, and he closed the door behind him, and the chimp came by and just basically ripped the car door off of the police cruiser. So yeah, these are very strong, powerful creatures. And as I mentioned, I just, I just don't really want to be around. I'm not a big fan of being around wild animals to begin with. I will say I do love ocean creatures, and I used to go scuba diving with my dad when I was younger. So I've been around sharks and barracuda and sea turtles and stuff like that. And you will get a healthy respect for how feeble we are compared to the rest of the nature once we leave our environment alone. So that's what really enticed me to this movie. Plus, I thought it was a remake of a movie, and I can't remember the title of it, but it was from, I want to say, it had to be back in the 80s, because it starred Elizabeth Shue when she was young, probably right around Karate Kid or somewhere in there. And it was, I think, something very similar, where she goes to this secluded house where the scientist has this chimp or ape or something, and it goes crazy and she has to fight it. But anyway, if anybody knows the title of that one, just let me know. So that's kind of what led me to this movie, what drew me in. I saw the preview and I was like, okay, you're kind of scratching an itch that I have. I don't care much for crazy chimpanzees, so I do want to watch. It's like a shark movie. You want to see that. So it's always fun to see these animals go out of control. So let's go ahead and talk about the positives of Primate.
Sounds pleasant.
And since that's what drew me into the movie, this is very much as advertised. If you watch the trailer and you go, wow, this is a movie about a chimpanzee that's going to kill a bunch of people in a secluded house, I want to go watch it. Guess what you're going to get? A movie about a chimpanzee that kills a bunch of people in a secluded house. So it doesn't mess around with the premise, nor does it mess around with the gore and the carnage. You do get to see this chimpanzee and what it is capable of doing to the human body at several parts in the movie. Some of them were kind of graphic to where I almost looked away, and I love gore. It wasn't so much the gore, it was some of the, how should I say, confrontations with the chimpanzee, where he is doing things to people while they're kind of still alive, while he's tearing off body parts that barely got under my skin. But yeah, I was worried that it might hold back a little bit. It does not. If you're not a fan of gore, probably stay away from this one. But yeah, if you're not afraid of some blood and some bones and some nastiness, yeah, this movie does deliver on that promise. I think the cast is fine. These are typical horror movie characters. You get a little bit of fleshing out at the beginning. I would say the first, 10, 15, 20 minutes of the movie, you get to learn about Lucy and her relationship with her dad and her sister, the fact that she's lost her mother to cancer, and this is her first time coming back and all that. So you're supposed to have some sort of emotional connection to them, to her best friend. You're also supposed to kind of not like Hannah because, she's the party girl and all that. So, you got very typical. And then they got the party boys or whatever you want to call them, the fuck boys. I think that's the term. They are basically fodder in this movie, not to give things away, but it's pretty obvious from the beginning of the movie what's going to happen to them. So yeah, it's kind of, one note horror movie characters. You're not getting a whole lot of growth or anything. But like I mentioned, this movie knows what it is, and it knows what you're coming to see. So you get enough at the beginning to kind of set up some stuff so you worry about people. But come on, we're here to see that chimpanzee just start tearing people's heads off. I will say though, as I was watching this movie, of course, the young lady Hannah had a very nice butt. And I know that sounds awful because I'm a dirty old man, which I am, but I used to know a Hannah that had a very nice butt, and it kind of made me sad a little bit. Curse you, movie. As far as the filmmaking side it's fine. It's nothing too amazing. I didn't expect, Citizen Kane coming out of a movie about a crazed chimpanzee. There was one aspect that was really cool. Troy Kotzer, I swear that's how you say his last name, but I could be wrong. Obviously, he's deaf. If you know anything about him, he won the Academy Award for Coda, in which he plays a deaf character. And that does play into the movie, not only with the setup of why they have this chimpanzee, because, like I said, his now deceased wife, she was a scientist and she was working with communication with these creatures, and they can communicate with him through sign language and all that. But at one point, the dad, played by Troy Adam, I think, yeah, that was his name, he shows back up after some of the carnage has happened. And it was really cool how they sort of, from his point of view, they would have it basically be silent because he's deaf, so he couldn't hear anything. And they'd have the chimpanzee would just appear behind him and stuff, and you would be on edge. And then it would cut over to someone else, and you would hear noise, and then you cut back to Adam, and it'd be quiet again, and the chimpanzee would be doing something. Although I will say, in my movie theater, every time it got silent, the asshole in the back just had to speak and talk to the movie and act like they're participating and that the characters are listening to them. Fun times. Hard to believe people don't want to go to movie theaters anymore. But I thought that was really a neat way to kind of incorporate that into the movie. That was probably the highlight of it, outside of just the gore, that it didn't hold back from that, which, again, I appreciate on this level, because that's kind of what you're looking for when you go to see this movie. And the last positive of this film, I guess, if we want to go with the direction, but yeah, this is an hour and a half long. Oh my God, it's just perfectly paced. Especially, there's a setup at the beginning, and then there's kind of the introduction to the characters. And about the time you start going, man, where's this chimpanzee? We're going to get some chimpanzee. Then it goes, okay, here he is. He's got rabies. It's go time. And then from there on out, you're on edge through the whole movie, because that chimpanzee is stalking people, chasing them into the pool because he can't swim for some reason, or just basically brutalizing. So yeah, it does exactly what it needs to do in that hour and a half running time, which I appreciate. I do love a horror movie that comes in at about that hour and a half mark. So having said that, let's go ahead and move into the negatives of Primate.
Uh-oh, I don't like the sound of that.
And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, with the characters are very horror movie characters, that sort of lends itself to this film. It's got your horror movie tropes. There are some bad decisions made by people throughout the movie where you're like, oh, why are you doing that? I will say there's some good decisions where you're like, okay, that makes sense. But then when the bad ones come, it really is stupid. Like, there's, I don't want to spoil things, but when the party boys, the fuck boys, whatever you want to call them, when they show up, yeah, these are some morons, which they're portrayed as morons, but even even at a level where you're like, okay, nobody's that dumb. That there's parts of this movie where people show up to the house after some of the rampaging has happened that is very visible throughout different rooms, where they walk through the room and they're just shrugged their shoulder like, what's going on here? When most people will be like, okay, some shit's gone down here. I need to call the police or something like that. But yeah, you get tropey stuff like that. There's some, again, I don't want to spoil anything. Yeah, let's just say that it definitely follows what you would expect in a typical horror movie of this caliber. It's not really the sharpest movie I've ever seen. I didn't come out of the movie thinking, wow, these characters really knew what they were doing, or it was really amazing how they pieced all this together. As I mentioned, it just kind of is what it is. My next negative for the film, and this one just sort of bothered me. I don't know if this is really against the movie, but it feels like sometimes they underplayed Ben the chimpanzee, his strength. There are a few times where people have to fight with him or struggle with him against something, where I was in the movie thinking, yeah, that chimpanzee would just either flick you to the side or would be able to get through whatever you put in front of him with no problem. These are very strong, scary creatures. That's like I said, I don't want to be in a room with a chimpanzee ever. And again, I'm not worried about that because I know they're not going to come driving up, and really they're not listening to this show anyway, so we're safe. This is a chimpanzee free zone. But yeah, I think there are some moments where I was like, okay, somebody should have done a little more research into how strong these creatures are, because this would have been over a whole lot faster than than what they portrayed it to be. And my last negative, and maybe this slides into the nitpicky a little bit more, but I wish they would have brought the dudes, the party boys, the fuck boys, whatever you want to call them, into the movie a little sooner. Maybe even before we realize Ben has rabies and is going to go ape shit. Pun intended. But I'm so clever. But yeah, if maybe they would have been there earlier, he could have kind of picked them off one at a time, or there would have been more. I don't know. Maybe if there were a couple more characters in there to give me a little more mayhem. That could just be for me because I wanted to see more of this chimpanzee just fucking people up. Because they, again, one of the positives was they do a really good job of showing that, and I enjoyed that aspect of the movie. So yeah, I wish they'd either brought them in a little sooner or maybe just had a few more characters that kind of met their demise in the film. I know that sounds completely morbid, but come on, that's what this movie is at this point. So overall, and unlike the episodes I do with my co-host, I'm not going to give you a number rating. I'll just recommend whether you want to see it or not. As I mentioned, if you watch the trailer and you go, oh, look, there's a movie about a chimpanzee going crazy and killing people, I'm kind of interested in that. Go, because that's what you're going to get. And I enjoyed the movie. I think it just zooms along at a great pace. Hour and a half. By the time you get done, you're like, hey, okay, I got the rest of the afternoon or evening or whatever the case may be. It's not these 3.5 hour epics we keep getting thrown in our face. But yeah, it moves along at a good pace. You got some good gore. You got some good crazy chimpanzee action. So I enjoyed the movie for what it was. Do I think this is, an amazing movie? No. But it was a fun movie. It's schlock is what it is. In fact, I wish it was more schlocky and we had more blood and gore. But yeah, that's all this movie is. And I'm okay with that. I do love a good schlocky movie. So in that regard, I think if you see the trailer and you think that's something you would want to watch, you're going to get what you think that movie is. For everyone else, definitely when it comes out on whatever streaming service it does in the next whatever 3-4 weeks. God, they come out so fast anymore. But yeah, what if you see it on Netflix or Amazon or Hulu or whatever? Yeah, watch it. It's fun. It's a fun movie. It's not going to challenge your brain. You're just going to enjoy this. Again, this chimpanzee just doing awful things to young people. And, as an older person, I do appreciate that. I wish the person that was running their mouth in the movie theater during the silent parts of the film was attacked by a chimpanzee in the movie. Maybe that's the only time I would have wanted to be in a room with a chimpanzee. So I could just go, could you please go tear their tongue out? But yeah, overall, I had a positive, fun time with the movie, and I would recommend watching it. If you're into that kind of gory horror movie, go watch it in the movie theater. If you want to wait, then definitely when it comes out on whatever streaming service, go check that out. So that sort of wraps up my take on Primate. Have you seen the movie? If you have, let me know what you think of the movie. Find us on Instagram at Cinematic Travelers Pod. Or you can get in touch with us on our email, thecinematictravelers@gmail.com, or in the comment section wherever you're listening or watching the show on. Again, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff. I will have my co-host back on our next episode. I think we're going to record that tomorrow night, so I'll have it out probably the beginning of the week. We are going to be reviewing Alien. It's hard to believe both of my young co-hosts have not seen Alien. I mean, one of the greatest movies ever. And for one of my co-hosts, Tyler, my son, I know I have failed him in so many ways as a father. But you definitely want to come back because I'm curious to see what they think of that movie, because I'm just concerned they're going to be like, oh my God, it was so slow. And it's just going to break my heart. But yeah, come back and see. We might have some fireworks if they go too negative on Alien, because I love Alien. So that should be out, like I said, beginning of the week. So that's another reason for you to subscribe and follow the show. Now, before I go, I just want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen to this quick episode. I tell everyone I know we've got the smartest and sexiest audience in all the podcast universe, and you never fail to live up to those high standards. Now, as you are traveling around on this blue and green ball, bouncing through the cosmos, avoiding crazed, deranged chimpanzees, I need you to do one thing for me. Go out there and do that voodoo that you do so well.
All right, show's over. I'm tired.